What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the N2F podcast. Today is episode 2, and we're going to go through a series of how to be prepared and how to put ourselves through adversity to prepare us for the future. I have a great friend of mine here today, Alex Jr. He is a strength and conditioning coach at Goodpasture, former college and professional athlete. I'm excited to hear about his insight today. Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, like you said, strength and conditioning at Goodpasture right now. Played college ball at Tennessee Tech, outfielder, 4 years there. Was lucky enough to get drafted 19th round by the Yankees. Played 3 years in that, and now sort of just looking in between phases to potentially go to PT school. So that's the dream right now. But still doing some coaching on the side to help out and just being around the next generation of the games to try to help them as much as they can. So
absolutely. And I know you have a passion for the game, and if you didn't, you wouldn't have gotten drafted. You wouldn't have put all those hours in for college ball. For a second, we're going to go through your college ball experience because I know that with your time at Tennessee Tech, you guys made a pretty awesome run in the Super Regionals. And although that was, about 4 or 5 years ago, a little bit long ago, but at the same time, watching that was fun because you were on the team and a couple other guys I knew were on that team, and I got to see you guys compete. But what I didn't see was your preparation. What did your preparation look like, not only in the off season, but going through the regular season, and then when you realized you're in the Super Regional? What was your preparation for that?
So with the preparation, I mean, really you got to think, because that was an older team. When we're going up against like big schools like that, for the most part, you're playing guys that are sort of younger when you get to that level, because you got some highly touted freshmen, sophomores playing at these other schools. We were all juniors and seniors. Like, we had a couple of freshmen contribute in the pitching staff, really, but all hitters. They were returners from last year with an occasion of like 2 or 3 guys. But you think about the years before, I think that's what really prepped us the most to make that run and know that we can make that run. Because the year before we went to Florida State for the for the regional there, got put out by Florida State after we beat them the first game, beat all.
Too.
Yeah,
that was like,
yeah.
It was a nail biter up until that last inning. That was awesome.
It was we got put out by Florida State after we lost to Auburn, who eventually had the number 1 overall pick the next year. But knowing what that felt like, I think that really helped us prepare for the 2018 season. And obviously you go through those off seasons where it's tough and all that, but going at it with a bunch of veteran guys makes that whole entire process a little bit easier. So you got guys that sort of know what they're doing. 3rd, 4th year round, even as junior college guys that came in 3rd year playing collegiate ball, and they gelled pretty well with us as the season progressed. But it was just honestly just staying in tune with what we know we do, staying with our approach, staying with how we play, our playing styles, and just consistently fine-tuning that. So week in, week out, we're still doing the exact same thing. We're not really changing up too much. We're not doing something that we know we don't do. I'm not going out there thinking, I need to hit home runs, considering we were a high home run hitting team.
I think you guys were leading the nation in home runs at that time.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Pretty big. Pretty big number, too. Like, it was 134 home runs in the season. So when you have those guys, like, especially as a leadoff, like I was the lowest on the team, and there was like a month where I didn't really hit anything, and where I stopped hitting home runs, but that wasn't my game. My game was to continue to get on for those guys to get me in. So just preparing your mind to stay in the season. We had a long win streak in that year. Same thing with that. Like, you couldn't think about the win streak. You got to think about why you have that win streak, why you're doing those things. And it's not because most of the time, like, we were a very, very solid team, but most of the time we went at it like we didn't have that win streak. It was just another game that we had to win. We had to win the series. We wanted to go 4-0 on the week, something small to help us continue to win. So that was like our big focus.
It's awesome
throughout the
that
season.
It's awesome that you mentioned your preparation, and when you talk about that super regional run when you guys played Florida State, and one of the things that you answered was the preparation started the year before, and I'm like, man, because everybody talks about their preparation and they think, I got a game on Friday, I need to start prep on Saturday, I need to start prep on that day. Well, what a lot of people don't realize, and especially in a realm that you and I coach in for middle school ball, is young men sometimes don't realize that their preparation starts years in advance. And it's hard to put that into context for a young athlete. And even when you're in college, when you're trying to prepare yourself for a series, when you're trying to prepare yourself for a super regional run, when you're trying to prepare yourself for doing an exam, things of that nature, we always look at it in a 7-day week. We look at it in a 7-day standpoint. Well, 7 days might be on a calendar for us in a week, but at the same time, that is, if you're preparing 7 days in advance, you're too late.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about you're studying. If you study and you do all that, as soon as you get the material and you start doing your thing and studying, that's different. But my point is adversity. How do you prepare yourself for that? When things smack you in the mouth, are you going to smack it back, or are you just going to realize that, oh, okay, yep, that's it, I'm done. So we live in a society where adversity makes its way in many forms. It is right now is the biggest, I would say, the biggest example of that. And a lot of people didn't use the past 5, 6, 7, 10 years to prepare themselves for this type of adversity. So for a college athlete, I noticed that in times like this, usually college athletes, professional athletes, not only are they more calmed in situations like this, but they are more liable to step up to the plate to help people. They're more giving, they're more understanding. And if you're not a college athlete, I'm not knocking you at all, but just from a standpoint of somebody that's prepared themselves day in and day out for their craft, and to be able to do that well and to execute when it matters. That's the most important part. I kind of want to hit on your experience with the Yankees too. So you mentioned you got drafted in the 19th round.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty late, but at the same time, did you expect to get drafted, number one? And number two, when you got drafted, what was the process? Did they, here's a candy bar and a plane ticket? What did they do after you got drafted, like the Yankees organization?
So the first question, talking about did I get drafted or did I expect to? After the season, like I had everyone's at this, the talent that we had, we always had scout day, and it would be good for some years. Sometimes it'd be okay, but I would go in on scout day, not really like to turn, like I would go to just do my thing. Like if I would want to showcase some things that maybe you could see flashes of it for the future, but mainly just go in and do the exact same thing that I did. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't, so be it. But I got some like interest, like a couple, like the pamphlets and all that. But it wasn't until that season that I started to realize, like, I mean, I might potentially get drafted this year. Didn't think I was going to go 19th. Didn't think I was going to be super early. But as the season prevailed, like we realized like how good this team was. I didn't realize how well I was doing until I really stepped back and looked at it from a different perspective later on. But I knew I had the chance to get drafted, and it didn't really blindside me. But when it actually happened, I was like, wow, this actually just happened.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But when I got drafted, we were still in that super regional run. We were just beat Ole Miss. We're coming back to practice on that Monday, and so the draft started on that. We had like a weird schedule, like we had a rain out day, so then the whole entire series and regional in Oxford got pushed back a day. So as we're coming back, we were in the second round. So we're hearing fourth round through seventh rounders go. And some of our teammates, one of them who's with the Cubs now, he got picked up, and that was exciting. You heard one of our Friday night guys, he got drafted by the Diamondbacks. You hear that, and so then you have the later rounds coming up, and we had to practice because we still had to go to Texas. We were still in the season, and we had to prepare for that. So they called me, they got me in. I had like previous talks with like the Rays, and I had no clue how this process worked. I had to ask one of our coaches whose brother was in the Braves organization and pitched for him. And I was like, how does this really work? Like, cause I have no idea, like to ask myself, how much do I think I value to a team, and like what I think I'm worth signing for. Cause I had an extra year. So I was a redshirt junior getting drafted. So that sort of had some leverage to it. But I didn't know. I just asked him, and he just told me an honest opinion. I sort of went with it. And practice time comes. We all had our phones laid out because we had almost everybody on that team got drafted. And they got the call mid-practice, and they were shouting out everybody. And I heard my name. They announced it. Coach Braga was like the 18th or 19th round. Alex Jr. is going to the Yankees. We all celebrated, and it was awesome. But at the same time, we still had to finish practice. So after practice was over, I tried to call my family. Nobody picked up the phone because they were working. It was like a midday. So the only one I got a hold of was my aunt. And she was like really excited. Then the news got out later on, and they were all happy for me. But got on the plane, like after the season was over at Texas, just they got the ticket. They said, how quickly can you get over to Tampa? And I was like, I don't know. I just got back from Texas. I guess I can go as soon as possible. And you guys, okay, it was on a Tuesday, and they're like, you think you could be here by Thursday? So I had to get my apartment like cleaned up. And my parents, luckily, it was not too far, so they were able to do that. But I got on that plane, got there, and immediately, basically after all the testing and sort of the examinations before, bam, was thrown right into it. Pretty shortly after, and trying to get the routine down, understand how things work. That's basically how it was, and they didn't really like. You go in there, you're just one of the many guys that they have. It's not like they do like a whole party. Like you see your name for your locker. You go into the locker room, then you have to get to work. Like immediately, no one's gonna be like, "Oh, this is so and so" and all that. They'll tell you like, "Oh, I watched you play at Tech. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. We were really rooting for you guys and all that." But at the same time, like they're like, "Well, we got to get to work because you're in pro ball now, so you got to go after it." So
it seems like your experiences with college ball, going through the super regional, and then getting drafted and whatnot. You talk about it like it went all so fast for you. They went like you're in super regional and you start winning games. You beat Ole Miss, and then it's boom, you got drafted, and then you guys eventually get put out, and then you got to make your way over to Florida, to Tampa. And the quickness of it and how fast that these teams are able to just tell you, hey, here's a plane ticket, we need you here on Thursday, and expect you obviously to be there. And because you have a dream and you have a passion, like you want to be there. At the end of the day, when you look back at your just preparation in general, when you look at high school ball at Goodpasture, when you look at college ball at Tennessee Tech, when you look at real life scenarios, what do you think prepared you the most for an environment like that? And if this specific scenario is something that is like close and dear to you, like, because I feel like that's a lot for a lot of people. If you have a scenario that you think you are in that moment and you know it's going to prepare you for something in the future, like, did you recognize it at the time, or did you not take it at face value? So I guess the first question is, was there anything in your life that prepared you for that fast, very quick turnaround to get into pro ball? I guess the
only thing you can really say about that, what prepared me, is college, because college is a little bit different of a game. You're playing 4 games a week. You still got classes, like everything's sort of jumbled up, and some things can sort of sneak up on you. Like you forgot that you had a test because you have all these games. Like you had 4 or 5 games in a week. and you have a test, and you're like, oh, shoot, I completely blanked. I gotta now study for it. So I guess that's like the real one experience that I could say sort of at least helped somewhat of understanding like this thing can get fast. But I mean, when you just look at sports, I mean, most of the time you make those level jumps from high school to college. That's a different level jump. One of the big jumps now that I'm coaching is seeing kids going from the small field to the big field. That's probably one of the bigger jumps you're going to make in the game.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
Like you'll play through middle school ball, high school ball, and yeah, people get better. People are throwing harder. People are just going to be better than you from the early stages. But that jump from middle school to the small field, 45 mound, 60 base path to 60-90, that's biggest jump you'll make. Once you get to college, that's another jump because now everyone's just like you. You got recruited, so did they. So you're making big jumps like that. Just how fast they go, I think that those guys up at the pro level really help you out to make sure it doesn't feel like everything's just getting thrown right in your face. They understand that it's going to take a little bit of adjustment. But I guess just my college coaches just understanding just the mentality of things and just looking at it to play the game that they are basically drafting you to do really helped me that. But I guess you just got to really think about it, just the college experience. And that's sort of similar in the aspects of people you might play with. And under that, the level, I guess that's the best way to say that adjustment for it. There's not really a fantastic thing to say like, yeah, I was really prepared for pro ball when I got there.
I mean, like there's super studs out there that will probably tell you they are, and they look like and they sound like they are, but they're probably not. They're probably just as awesome as everybody else is, but they look the part and they take advantage of that situation.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, most definitely, you just gotta you sort of just gotta take it how it is, and you can't be. If you're a person that just like super structure, you got to know that things can change on a dime, and they got to do their job too because it's a business. Mm-hmm. So you just got to sort of go in with an open mind. You can't be like, this is how it's going to go, this is like that, because you might be shocked in that. And so you got to be able to open and sort of take in experiences like that.
Exactly. And if somebody is kind of taking stock in you, if they want to put their eggs in your basket and they look at what do you have to offer. Like for the game of baseball, we talk about 5 tools. You talk about speed and strength and just all of the variables that go into the game of baseball. And the ones that you see on TV that are Hall of Famers, very few of them are 5-tool baseball players. That's very rare to get to. But a lot of the guys in professional baseball, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of those guys are at least 4 tools, at least. If they have 3, then their role might be a little bit different. Maybe pinch hitter, maybe pinch runner, relief pitcher. But most guys have at least 4 tools for that game. I kind of relate that to when you are in college and you have businesses putting stock in you and wanting to invest in you and wanting you to work for them. I think the grades are important, don't get me wrong. The GPA is important, the entrance exams are important, but what they're looking at is your time management. They're looking at your ability to have 15, 16 credit hours, to play a college sport. Oh, by the way, this kid also is a part of a ministry group. Oh, this kid is he's on honors. Like, so they have to recognize that the time management is super, super important. Which leads me into my next question. When in professional baseball, I feel like you guys have a lot of time where you're working hard and a lot of time where you got some downtime. Because, I mean, let's be realistic. It's a full-time job. You guys are probably at the field, about 40 hours a week, roughly?
Yeah.
Ish?
Yeah.
So if you have that free time, you do have a bunch of free time. Well, how do you allocate that? And especially from somebody who's just playing minor league ball that didn't just make $1 million contract to go spend it on a top level trainer. Somebody that has to really grind for what they want. So what did your day-to-day look like, and how did you allocate that free time to be able to kind of sharpen your tools, if you would say it that way, for the game of baseball?
So, we had a pretty solid plan. Every day, basically, you wake up early. We wake up about, I can't remember what the specific time was, but I'm trying to get to the facility, which wasn't too far of a drive. We stayed in a hotel during spring training. We got to the field probably about like 7 o'clock in the morning to eat breakfast and all of that. Everything would start. Either your defensive group, offensive group would start at 8-ish, something like that. And sometimes like you basically you need to eat. So I would go in and eat breakfast.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty important. Go in and eat breakfast. Sort of have a little time to sit, and then I would go stretch because we had to stretch before we could hit, do anything. And you always want to get that extra work in hitting. So you could stay in after, but for the most part, like you're usually just got done playing and all that, and you sort of just want to sort of wrap things up. You might go watch film. Like they have a little video room where you could go back and watch stuff. But for me, my particular routine, because I'm a big guy to have a routine for whatever, taking a test, just taking group practice, whatever, coaching practice, whatever it is. I like to at least have a routine to do it. And if things are where things got quick when I couldn't have that adjustment or couldn't get that early work in, couldn't eat breakfast, I would sort of have some routine or like a backup routine so things could still feel like they're in order, which I think is important, especially in the game of baseball. Mm-hmm. But we get there in the morning, try to get some early work hitting. You sort of look at the clock, be ready to go, get out the field, stretch, defensive segment. You're just going through the day like that. Then you go to team defense potentially. It depends on what the schedule is. It would change day to day. But you get your offense in, you get your defense in, footwork out in the outfield, and hitting. You just have whatever the drills were. You try to rotate each cage, try to get as many cages as you can. Sometimes you would just go through, you would have about 6 cages open. Sometimes you're stuck at 3 because those are the 3 that you can get in the most. Like some people would be waiting forever, and I was like, I'm just trying to get in. Like I don't care what the drill is. If I've done this drill 20 times a day, I guess it's the drill I do 20 times a day. Mm-hmm. But you just have that regimen and the routine that you're going through with that, and then you have the downtime. Like the downtime, like you especially when you start spring training games and actually doing that, you're getting done at 4 or 5, and you have the rest of the day to yourself. I was a big component of honestly just taking the rest of the time off. I'm not worried about hitting. I'm not worried about that. Sort of rest your body, rest your mind, because you know that the next day is going to be the exact same thing. So I would try to take any preparation of what I needed to watch and all that. I would try to get in early, go watch film, go stretch, go hit, and work on the things that I was trying to improve on hitting wise. If it needed to be approach, mechanics, whatever it may be, I would go do that. Even watch defensively. Like I felt like I had a bad drop step this time. Usually was pretty good about remember the inning, so it made it even easier to find it. Mm-hmm. Go find it, do that, look to correct it that next time. So my free time, I really just wanted to rest, and I especially coaching high school, doing some things. People think that they got to be on the go all the time. Mm-hmm. When you rest is your best friend. Like your body, you might think your body feels great, but if you're not resting or taking time off, because you're going to be around the game enough, you're going to be around your buddies enough. You need time away and just time to just relax your mind, even if it's a couple hours, the rest of the night, whatever it is, because come back next day, back at it again, doing everything again. Mm-hmm. So my free time, of course, you get in those moments like, man, I should have done this, should have done that. I would try to put that off. So when I got to the next day in the morning, I can go at it with a sort of better mindset instead of beating myself up about it. Like, man, maybe I botched a ground ball. Some guy got an extra base. Instead of harping on it all night, just go to sleep. Just wait till the next day, and then go at it with approach that might be a little bit better instead of constantly harping on yourself or maybe bashing yourself or not handling things the right way. Take a step back, sort of understand why I did it, how I did it, and then go from there to correct it.
And yeah, baseball is a weird sport in that aspect because it's a long season. And even though in certain ways the game of baseball is very physically demanding on the body, especially on your shoulders and your knees and whatnot, but it's not as physically demanding as, say, football or rugby. But mentally demanding, I will say this to the day I die, and I might be a little biased because I played the game for so long and so has Alex. But I think that baseball is the most physically demanding sport, the most mentally demanding sport that you can play. Not in the fact that, like in jiu-jitsu, when you're getting choked out by somebody for 15 minutes straight, or if you're having to grapple somebody. I'm talking about like mentally a sport that you're going to fail, 100%. Yeah. You are going to fail. There are days where you fail every time you step up to the plate. There are days when you're going to fail 3 out of the 4 times you step up to the plate. But then you'll have that one day where everything's going right and you'll go 4 for 4 and you're going to feel great. But for every one day like that, there's 21 other days where you're not going to feel your best. But mental preparation for the game of baseball is way beyond just watching film, visualizing the next pitch at the plate, realizing what you did wrong in a certain scenario in a game. The rest is super important, and sometimes you have to decompress. And a big component of that is on game days. When you get home and you're beating yourself up because your team just lost, you went 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, and you didn't hose a guy at third base from right field. You're going to beat yourself up. Trust me. Any baseball player that I've ever met has never had their team lose. Well, let me rephrase. Any baseball player I've met that's competitive, but a competitive team guy, never goes home and thinks, oh, well, I did something great today, but my team lost. No. Every guy I've ever met that's worth playing the game with has always thought about, man, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. I didn't execute for my team. My teammates needed me in that scenario, and I let them down. So if you think about it, the game is very mentally demanding in that aspect. But you mentioned a great point, the rest. The rest is super important because your body obviously needs to recover, right? But your mind is the most recovering aspect in that rest period. So when you're in a rest period and you're for some men, we can actually sit down and turn our brains off. Like it's like TV static. And what that does is it helps us reconnect with what's important in our lives. When we sit down and do nothing, when we sit down and rest and we sit down and fill our minds with garbage on TV or TikTok or whatever it is, sometimes it helps us realize what's important. And I think what it is if you are motivated or a driven person and you see that somebody is doing something better than you or somebody has something you don't, and you're motivated to go get that thing or whatever, fill in the blank, as an athlete, if we are mentally prepared and we have that rest time and we have that downtime where we realize that what's really important to us, that important thing starts to climb up the ladder again. Because when you're playing a game or if you're preparing for a game, you start going through the motions. You're like, man, I'm in the cage again, hitting off the tee. I'm taking ground balls at second base and just regular stuff. But once you get to that moment and you realize that, oh, we're in a game right now and the game is on the line and the game's in my hands, if we didn't take that time to address what's important to us and we didn't take that time to address what's important for our team, which is my execution, at that point, we didn't prepare our minds enough. If that is not something that hits you straight in the heart, if you didn't take the time to relax, to take that break, and then let that important thing climb back up the ladder so that when you get to that moment, you execute. So at the end of the day, when as a professional athlete, when you are looking at all the other prospects in the organization, first off, how many guys did you guys have like when you got drafted, how many guys were in your like draft class, I guess, that were in the Yankees organization?
My draft class, I believe we had somewhere, because there's 40 rounds. I think we had about, I think we signed almost most of them for the most part. Probably, I guess if I give you a number, like I think about 35, something
35 or 40?
Yeah, I think so.
So you're already competing with 35 guys, new guys.
Yeah.
Right? May or may not play your position, but they're the new guys.
Yeah.
You've got to come in and you have to not really assert your dominance, but you have to come in and make a statement. You have to be different for those guys early and often.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the new guys that come in, you probably had, a couple of guys that you were competing with as far as outfield was concerned? Or
Yeah, I had to get them out because I know that my second year, Staten Island, short season A ball, we had 7 outfielders. Like, we had a lot of outfielders going out there, and only could 3 play, and maybe one might DH, but we had 7 outfielders, and sometimes, like, you feel like, oh, man, how am I not out there? What do I got to do to get out there? Sometimes just being patient, waiting for when they say that, because you just got to be coachable even at that level. But when you get out there, you got to make everything count. You got to make everything as efficient as you can. Any opportunity that you get, you got to just try to go out and get it. So that's what I tell my guys too. And again, same thing with the mindset, how you're beating yourself up about it. When you're competing like that, or just competing at any level, especially when you get to this level where it's sort of like you want that team aspect, but at the same time you sort of got to go get yours, which is, I think, the tough part about pro ball. Is it's a little bit different from college, because college you want everybody to do well. You can get guys drafted just being like a great team like that. That's how I believe I got drafted at Tech. But pro ball, it's a little bit more of a hunt. You got to hunt for yours. You want your teammate to do well, but you want to do better than them. So it's hard in that aspect. So you don't have time to really be pouting about, like, man, I didn't do this well. And like we were saying earlier, I was thinking about it, that I told my middle school guys that I coach, the hardest part about baseball is how much time you have between at bat. Let's say you strike out 3 pitches. Okay. What's so hard about it is when you're doing this, you are sitting for 2 innings before you get another chance, potentially 3 innings before you get another chance. So especially in the outfield, where I might not get as much action if our guys are throwing well or whatever, man, I'm sitting there for 30 minutes before I even get another chance to step up to the plate if we're not hitting well as a team. So you're sitting there harping like, man, I should have hit that fastball. I should have done this. And so I tell my guys, like, that's a hard thing to deal with, because basketball, whatever sport you're playing, you have to worry about the next thing. If you make a turnover, you got to get back on defense and play. Football, you make a turnover, they score, you got to go back out on offense and play. Baseball, you strike out 3 pitches, or you missed out on a bases loaded situation, you got to sit on that for 30 minutes, maybe, for a long time.
And you might, like you said, you might not even get a chance to redeem yourself on defense in the outfield. You're basically just standing there going, oh man, I wish I'd hit that, 1-0 fastball right down the middle. Oh man, I wish and it just starts, you play this over and over and over again in your head, because the human mind is not meant to take that much failure. So that's why the game of baseball is also so different, because you see the amount of failure that these guys go through. And this is one of the things that, just watching the game of baseball, playing it for the short time I did in college, and then watching the game professionally, you look at the guys that are the best. I think the guys that are top tier, the household names that you hear all the time, those guys, yes, they're physically better. They are, I think, a little bit mentally stronger in a way. But I also think that what separates them is their ability to forget, their ability to let it go and allow themselves to do what they do best and not get in their head about it. So, to your point, when you look at professional athletes and you see that, like, yes, they're on a team, and yes, their team wants them to do good, but they're out there to get theirs.
Yeah.
They're out there to get paid because that's their job.
Yeah.
Right? That's where the separation comes in. Is because, yes, they're team guys, and yes, they want to go get a World Series ring, but ultimately, they're out there to get paid.
Yeah.
I know myself personally, if I were to get drafted, every guy on my team I would try to make an impact on in some way. But I'm out there to get paid.
Yeah.
I want to be there because I have things in my life that I have goals to set that I want, and there's places I want to visit and things I want to buy, like material things, right? But at the end of the day, when you see top tier, not just baseball players, but professional athletes in general, their ability to forget and let go of their past mistakes separates them from the rest of the world. That's what makes them great in a sense. They're physically gifted. Don't get me wrong. They have a mental finesse that they can present to people, and they're very eloquent in the way that they speak to people and sell themselves. But at the end of the day, those professional athletes, the top tier ones, are so good at forgetting their past mistakes. And that's the biggest separating factor for me. Just seeing it in the college realm and then seeing it professionally, just watching it on TV. And the small amount of people that I know that do play professional baseball. You might be able to attest to that. You may have a different opinion, but to me, that's huge.
With those guys, again, like those guys that really got it. And you can see it at the college level, and that's honestly some of my favorite things is watching those guys that could really, really hit it, where they might get out and people are like really excited. And sometimes they might get mad when they come back in it, but to see them still like walk back in the dugout, like not like really phased, like I'm still going to get it, or I'm going to get them back next time. And then they come back and hit a home run. Yeah, those guys are terrifying. Those guys, you look at them and they're just like, wow, he's really like that. But in Pro Bowl, like you said, you're gonna compete, but not only are you competing, like you got to forget, go get yours in that aspect, but you're not only going up in your own organization. Like you got guys trying to prove themselves for possibly trade value. Like if they can get trade value, so someone can get something good for them back, but they might be in a better position now going up. I know I played with one of a guy that I played with when I first got to Staten Island. He was with the Yankees. He was doing pretty good. Like was like I think he was one of our organization players of the year. And he ends up getting traded, and he's the Pirates, and he goes up to Double-A, possibly going to go up to Triple-A. I think starting next year or something like that. But he has a good chance to go up and play in the bigs. But he, at the same time when he was with me, like we were both struggling, and it was a grind. But that next year, you see a massive jump in him, and he was a talented guy. Like that guy was a dude, young guy, and just had that ability. Like he just had like that mindset where sometimes he was like, man, that guy's good and all that, but man, he knew he was good too. Like even if he didn't say it, sometimes like he would come back to the dugout. I was like, man, that guy was legit. And I was like, well, I mean, you're pretty legit too. So I mean, exactly. You got to think that too. But he's doing well now. He's doing awesome. But man, like those guys got it. And so you gotta think about that too. That you're not just impressing your organization, you're impressing somebody else out there. Somebody else might see that guy's really valuable. He can help out our organization. We got to find a way to get him. We have some guys that are sort of doing okay, but we think we can give somebody up for, in return, get somebody that's going to push us to be better. And so that's one process that you got to think, and you can even take that to life. I've been around sports so much that it's just it's integrated to my like I'm wired to think like in the sports realm. So if I'm talking to somebody, I'm sorry, I'm always bringing up sports, but like when you think about it,
I'm sorry, dude.
It's like
I'm an athlete. I apologize.
One thought I have. I'm sorry, but you got to think about it. Like you might be in a job right now, or you're doing fitness right now. You're working, you're trying to impress somebody, but you do well in your job and you sort of make impacts like that where you're impressing somebody else that you didn't even know was watching. Like somebody's they always say somebody's watching, and you got to play like you got to do things like you don't know that they're watching. You got to stick to what you always do. But again, like if you're doing things the right way, even though you might not think somebody's paying attention, someone most definitely is paying attention. So that's always an aspect of pro ball. I mean, again, cutthroat sometimes. Some things you might not get a fair shake on it, but you do things the right way. Whether you get a fair run at it or not, something will come back to you. And I try to stay connected to some of those guys. Talk to some of the staff members very, very occasionally. We had a mental strength coach, and I followed her on Instagram and just communicated with her sometimes. But just again, same thing. Like I thought that I took what she said pretty well, and so I'm trying to apply it to myself. She'll have some posts on Instagram that are pretty solid, that makes you think like in that I need to grow mentally and all of that. But you look at those guys that are still there that I played with. Again, those guys are getting after it. They got that mindset that they gotta go somewhere. If it's not with the Yankees, and it's with somebody else. So you always just gotta just keep your foot on the gas, whatever you're doing.
Yeah, you keep your foot on the gas in that sense, and especially like we're talking about sports, we're talking about athletics, but at the end of the day, we do realize that the majority of our population either didn't play a professional sport or didn't even play a collegiate sport, and we recognize that the society that we live in needs the words that we're saying right now needs to be heard, not just for athletes, just your everyday person. Just recognizing that whether you're working at McDonald's or you're working for your own company because you're an entrepreneur and you just made your top end gross for the past 5 years. I mean, but if you keep your foot on the gas and you continue to put your head down and put your nose on the grindstone and continue to pay yourself, you continue to put that money in the bank, if you want to put it that way. You continue to invest in yourself regardless of where you're at in your life. I promise you that it will pay dividends. You will not see it next week, next month, next year, but 5 or 6 years down the road, it's just like investing. You're going to get that money back some way, somehow, and 9 times out of 10, if you do it the right way, you're going to get way more than you expected out of it. To your point about athletes that are the guys that are dangerous when they strike out the first at bat and then they come back and hit a bomb. Like everybody talks about who's going to be MVP this year? Who's going to be MVP this year? Who's going to be, who's going to get that gold glove? Who's getting that platinum glove? That stuff's important, right? My favorite award in all of sports is Comeback Player of the Year. That is one of the biggest awards to me. Because you look at people like the Alex Smiths of the world, who, professional football player, had a very serious injury, had a number of surgeries. I can't even tell you how many surgeries he had because his life was in serious danger. He almost died twice, and all because of a broken leg. And a lot of different things happened in his life over a short amount of time that changed his life so quickly. And you look at that was back about, what was that, about 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah.
And last year he comes back into the NFL and he starts. He is a starter in the NFL after everything he's been through. And he wasn't MVP. He didn't have MVP caliber numbers. He wasn't a guy that had a QBR rating over like 80, 90. He wasn't a guy that was, dropping 300-yard games every other week. But the guy found a way to put his foot on the gas, even though he didn't really have a will to do so. Like, his career he was told that it was over. And he came back. He was Comeback Player of the Year. And I was not an Alex Smith fan until that point, when I recognized exactly what he went through and realized that, holy cow, he's not the best, but I would love to put his mindset over anybody else's. I would put his mindset and any motivational speaker, put them toe to toe. Alex Smith has a crazy, crazy mental game. But that's how we should be in our regular lives. I don't think that we have to go through something traumatic to be able to have that mental capacity. But I think that the preparation that we've been talking about, if you aren't prepared and that situation happens, you will find yourself, if you're not prepared, you will find yourself starting to slide down the hill without any stop. And you're going to end up being a snowball and it's going to keep going. But that prepared aspect, if you're prepared for that moment, there's going to be that wall that stops you. And it tells you, hey, look, you're good. We're not going downhill anymore. Now, put your hiking boots on. Let's go back up the hill. Just make sure we're prepared now and go forward with it. And the adversity that we face nowadays is different from what people faced, even 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. So we definitely every day have to put in our own minds that there's adversity outside that front door and even in our pocket on our phone. So we have to make sure that we prepare ourselves for that and we keep our foot on the gas and we continue to strive for excellence, whatever that may be in our daily lives. So I'll transition a little bit. So we've been talking about sports and specifically college and professional aspects, like for your life. Mm-hmm. I'm going to switch over to the coaching aspect now because this is something that we share as far as coaching young men, young athletes, and how we prepare them. You've already hit on that just a little bit. So you mentioned that what age do you coach again for middle school?
I got 5th and 6th grade basketball, and then 7th, 8th grade baseball.
Okay, cool. So you're dealing with, young men. These guys are young. Most of them probably don't even have a cell phone. I hope not, but at the same time,
you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked.
Yeah, most of them probably are famous on TikTok at this point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're dealing with a very small population that, as young athletes, their minds are so malleable. Mm-hmm. It's like clay. And little by little, you start chipping away and you start chiseling their mind into being just a savage, just an absolute beast. But it takes a while. If you had one thing to say to them, and you had one thing to say, and then after that, you went mute, you couldn't talk for the rest of the season, what was the one thing you would say to them?
Pretty simple.
To stay prepared.
At this age, they're young, and they think they got to do everything right. If I had to give you one thing to say, and sort of you can have two ways to say it. You can either say, I don't care about results. I care about the process. Mm-hmm. Like if you're going about the process the right way, you're going to get the results. If you handle things in practice and you do things the right way in practice, it'll set yourself up the best for the game. I have especially with our 5th graders, they're sort of new to the school ball aspect of it. I tell them I could when they have their games and all that, they might count them, we might not. I don't really pay attention to that because I say we're trying to get you ready for next year because you're gonna have us again next year. I could care less about you messing up. If you're gonna fail forward is the other way I was gonna say. Because you're gonna fail. I can't tell you how many times when I played at this level, I got the ball taken away from me just because I couldn't handle the ball, wasn't handling pressure, where someone had to take me out to put somebody else in. When I was in baseball, I was better on that aspect of this, but where I would try to put too much pressure on myself, thinking, I got to get this hit. When I tell my kids all the time, I learned from my coach and all that, you can't control a hit. You might be able to hit the ball in contact, but you can't, or put the ball in play. But at the end of the day, you can't control a hit.
You can't control what happens to the ball after it leaves your bat.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. I was like, can you control if you get a hit or not? And some people I said yes when I first did it. And then my coach said, can you? And then he was like, you can. You hit it in an area, you might hit a line drive right at the shortstop. That's a good process. That process was good. The result wasn't, but it was still good what you did. Because if you hit the ball hard all the time, you're going to eventually get a hit. Like it's not going to be against you. The world's not going to be against you that much where you hit the ball hard 9 times out of 10 and you get one hit out of it. If you keep doing that process, you're going to handle things the right way. My middle schoolers, like we had a game yesterday, started out slow, and I told them, like, you got to focus up in the locker room before. You hear them just doing hoot and holler and all of that, which I'm okay. They're kids. I mean, it happens. But at the same time, like, how are you going to be focused on this game? You got to treat it as if like there is no on switch, like, or on and off switch. You can't be like, I'm just gonna go out here and do my normal thing, which it should be on like your practice shouldn't look any different from your game. You should always be done. Like if you're a guy that's a dominating person in games and all that, your practice should be even more dominant. Like you should be always be on people and no one can really stop you. In the basketball realm, baseball, you should always be making hard contact and all that. So, but it comes with the process. Like how are you going about it? If you're looking for results, you'll get results, but I don't think you'll do them in the right way. I think you'll be looking at the wrong way that you're going at it. I really, really think that if you have the right process about what you're going at it, the results will come. The wins will come. If you're throwing a lot more strikes, you're not worried about like, oh, I'm going to just ramp it up on this. No, if you're throwing strikes for the most part, you're going to get good results. People are going to get weak contact. You're going to get soft contact to people. You might get some little bloops here and there, but I mean, you're still on the offense as a pitcher. Like you want to be on the offensive. You don't want to be a defensive pitcher. If you're hitting, like you don't want to always be like, oh, I'm just going to be defensive all the time. Now, if you're working on solidly hitting the ball, spreading it across the field, and you've been working on that, you're not going to be a one-dimensional guy. So it's all about pushing yourself in the process and understanding you're going to fail. Like to get better, like the classic quote, pressure makes diamonds. If you don't have that, like if you don't ever go through that situation, if you don't ever go through a hard time, adversity, I don't know what we would have as an athlete. Like if in a season, I told our guys we might not see it yet. I hope we do, but you're gonna face adversity. It might be a tough game. It might be somebody get injured. We had 2 kids sick earlier on in the season or early on this week, and we had 3 games, and they were pretty key players. I told them, I mean, they're not here, but they're also not here to save you. So if you're a guy that's sort of been like, oh, I'm just going to ride behind them, or, oh, we really need them, that's sort of the mindset that we don't need. We need to go. We need to still be like, okay, he's not here. Next man up. I've been working for this. So if I had to go through the end, 1, I guess it would be 2, but go for the process without the results and understand you're going to fail. If I had to drop it off at that's the last thing I say for the rest of the season, I would do that.
That's super important because you think about failure and how it fits into the process. And I'm a person that if you don't fail, your process is wrong.
Yeah.
If you don't put yourself in a situation where the adversity overtakes you and you fail, then your process is not working. And I relate it to the gym. Like when you're in the gym and you're getting your work in and you're doing your thing, if you just keep doing sets of 8 to 10 reps and you're comfortably doing that, and you got the last 2 or 3 are pretty difficult, you might get better for a season, but you're not putting yourself in the right position to win later on. So you have to give yourself a situation where, all right, this is 10 pounds heavier than what I typically push, and I'm going for 10. Let's see if I can get there. And if you fail getting there, your process was great. The process is, in my opinion, is the most important part of anybody's journey. Right? It's the most important part. And whatever you're trying to accomplish in life, whether it's professional athlete, whether it's entrepreneur, whether it's the best burger flipper at McDonald's, whatever your goals are, you have to have a process to it. And I hate to say it, but everybody's process is like, oh, I'm winning. I keep getting my PRs. I keep hitting this and this and this. It's like, great job. I love that you're hitting your personal records. I love that you're going out there and doing great, and you just keep winning. How about you lose? Lose one time and tell me what your process looks like. Because a lot of people will lose once. They will go out there and they will fail miserably without knowing what failure looks like, and it will crush them because they don't recognize what that looks like. So, again, if life is supposed to deal you failure, like cards, and you just keep winning, eventually somebody's going to have a better hand than you, and you're going to get defeated. And what's going to happen? You're going to lose your passion, you're going to lose your desire, and your drive will start to go downhill because you didn't put failure in your process. Super, super important.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to young men and the way that we have social media in this world, this is a really weird topic for a lot of coaches, especially guys like us who coach the younger generations. When you have social media that plays into everything, and it's like every time you turn around, you have a kid that's like, "Did you see this on TikTok? Did you see this and this?" It's like, we saw it. I know. How do you tell your players? How do you get the message to them that social media is overall, it's, in my opinion, it's an addictive drug. Mm-hmm. How do you position the media narrative? How do you position that to your young guys and let them know that whatever's on your phone is, first off, probably 90% fake, and second off, not real life? How do you help them in that stance? Because that seems to be a really big topic when you coach young kids. How do you help them with the social media realm?
So obviously with the 5th and 6th graders, we don't have that big problem, but we do have some highly touted guys on that team. Like, they're pretty legit. 7th, 8th grade, you can sort of get it. And I'm sort of lucky because I'm in that boat of, especially with baseball, our coach, he does not like want you to sort of like brag on the look at me's and all that, because again, like when you look at highlights, they're their highlights. You can even doctor, I want to say doctor stats, but you can make stats look good.
You can absolutely doctor
like
stats. We'll get a game changer when a parent controls it.
Yeah. But like whenever you're like posting stuff, and there's something out there that you can sort of like make it look pretty. Like even in, like, let's say, I don't know, somebody scores 40 points. You don't, sometimes like they scored 40 points. Okay, well, how many shots did they just take? What was their shot selection? Like, are they getting like good looks? Like, you see the highlights and they're open, or they did all this, but you look at it and like, if you go, let's say if you don't have not 40 points, let's say you have, I don't know, like something simple like 15 points. But if you're scoring 15 points on 20 shots, like that's a ton of shots you just took.
Yeah. Percentages are low.
Like, I mean, it's a pretty, like, you can still get pretty decent like numbers from it, but I mean, some of those points you got to think coming from the free throw line and all that, and so you can look at it like that. You got baseball guys. Again, our coach is not like if you repost something about you, that's okay for him, for the most part. But if you're going out there like I did this, he doesn't like it because it draws away from the team. And at the end of the day, it's a team. If you're not making the guys around you better, regardless of how good of a level you are, I don't know if you're making really a great impact.
No,
so, when you look at that, like baseball, like I got 3 hits. Well, how many at bats did you just have? Like, you can say,
how many at bats did the team have?
Yeah.
What did you do in those?
Yeah. Like, and you're like, I got 3 hits and 2 RBIs, and we won. Yada yada yada. And you say that on the weekend, you got 3 hits on the weekend. That's 1 hit a game potentially. Yeah. So, I mean, you sort of got to, and then you look at the other bats where they're chasing, they're doing all this. So, I'm glad you got that, but I mean, you don't need the highlights. You got to see what happens like when you're struggling. I like to see what people do when they're struggling. Honestly, like when things aren't going their way. See that. Let's see what you're doing now. Like, can you get out? Can you get yourself out of the hole? Can you do this? Like, do you trust you? Like, especially at this age, they're looking up at the stands. No, they can't save you. I can't save you. Nobody can save you. It's got to be you. Like, as much as I like team oriented things, when you are struggling, it is now you and how you get out of it. So I like to see a little bit of like fight. Like, yeah, I might not have the best at bat, or like they're like, man, I had such a bad game. Did this. I mean, I just didn't do so well. but you got to clutch it at the end of the game. Like, so you're telling me you struggled this whole entire game, couldn't really get a hit, had bad at bats, but you came back in that last at bat and did that. I think that shows a lot about a person. If you can do that, then obviously people like I went 3 for 3, gone 8 for 12 on the weekend, been doing good. Sort of got to look at who you're playing against at that point, because if you're not struggling, some people just got it like that again. But I want to see what people do in the struggle. So the social media, I want people to put it out. Like I want people to, other people, not the person themselves. I want other people to sort of see that they're doing good and show the highlights of them doing good. So it's good for them to see their name in it. But it's like when you start to be like, I did this, I did that. Like, that's sort of like, so if you're good, like I tell people, if you're good, you won't have to talk about it yourself.
Nobody, yeah, exactly.
If you do you, and people are like legit, like if I talk about my buddy, Kevin Stroshine.
You can name drop on here. It's cool.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't know why I didn't. But Kevin, when he first got to Tech, I was like, why is he here? I was like, this guy's so good. And so I was like, at first, I was like, okay, I'm going to split time with him, because it was my redshirt freshman year. I thought I was going to be sort of splitting time with him because we had some seniors and some older guys ahead of me, and I was like, okay, well, he's a freshman, and I'm a redshirt freshman, so we'll probably split. And his first at bat, he hits a grand slam. So there's no splitting time with Kevin.
Yeah,
Kevin's got that. Kevin's good. But it's like stuff like that. Like, you look at guys, and like even like one of our guys, he's with the Cubs. He's 5'9", has a cutter. And he's in AAA. Like he's on the 40 man for the Cubs now. Ethan Roberts. The guy's legit. Like, and and you like look at him and you're like, okay, he's good. And my buddy Pat, was with Vanderbilt, I asked him, I was like, I guess like, where were you? Because we ended up beating them, and Vandy's like always pretty good. And he goes, yeah, well, in the scouting report didn't say the guy had a cutter. And so this guy's just cutting us up the whole entire time, and he was legit. So that's why he's doing what he is. But like, no one had to. You don't have to be like, yeah, we got this guy. Like I was saying to other people, like this guy, and they ended up getting drafted and still playing, both of them. But they didn't go out and say, oh, hit 2 home runs today, or oh, had 3 Ks and a save. No, someone was talking about them, and at the college level, it's pretty evident that they had people talking about them because they got drafted and they got to D1. But again, like if you're good, no one's gonna question you're good. People will talk about you, and the buzz will build up. You don't have to force buzz. Like you don't have to force your issue. Like, oh, I'm doing this. So, I like social media. It's good it's a better way to get people to look at you and all that. It's good, but it can be bad with that look, because like, again, like if you doing what you should be doing, you're following the process, and you do the things the right way, coaches will talk about you, which will lead to college coaches looking for you, which will lead to potentially getting drafted, and yada, yada, yada. It's not that easy, obviously, but if you do the things the right way, I believe people should. You don't have to talk about yourself. You don't have to build yourself up like that. People will do it yourself. Correct. Yeah.
And the social media realm for my guys, and one thing I talk about with them is the fact that, dude, whatever you see on social media, whatever you're looking at, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, whatever, just know that the people that you see on there that are famous probably don't have that many skills. Just being realistic, like the people that get famous solely off of social media, and you have to look at it and say, okay, they probably have good people skills. Okay, cool. They can talk to a camera, cool. But they don't have. They just don't. There's something that they don't have, and it's cool that they're famous on social media. But they, at the end of the day, whatever they're looking at, like on I don't care what the platform is. Like if you're looking at somebody and like, oh yeah, this person's TikTok famous. It's like TikTok famous is just another word for having very little skills and doing it on a camera. Like that's what that is. But at the end of the day, when these guys see all these extravagant things on social media, I have to tell them to take a step back and be like, hey, look, that's extravagant. Don't get me wrong. You want to be like the Fernando Tatises of the world. You want to be like the Mike Trouts of the world. You want to be like David Gogginses of the world, whatever it is. But at the same time, like, you have to recognize that that's not you. Somebody else. You have to be you. You have to be authentic. And if you can learn how to put your character and your authenticity into your hard work and your dedication, somebody will notice. Somebody will like you. You may not become famous, but by God, people will talk about you like you're a saint because of the way that you carry yourself and the way that you put your character into your hard work, and you showcase that and sell yourself in that way. But yeah, social media can be kind of hard for young kids. Do you have a time that you need to get out of here?
Probably soon.
Okay, cool. I was gonna get it wrapped up. So last couple questions for you. As far as your experiences in playing sports your whole life. I mean, you and I played ball together at Goodlettsville here at Little League together. Mm-hmm. We've known each other for a long time. Our families are good friends. We don't talk all the time, but you are a person that when I see you in public or when I reach out to you, it's like brothers talking again for the first time in a while. Yeah. But your experiences playing sports, how does that affect your outlook? How does that affect your perspective on the important things in your life? So I guess a more specific way to put this is, how does sports improve your quality of life? How does it help you go through adversity, whether it be the process of sports or just the enjoyment of sports? How does it help you in the everyday, mundane, going through the motions kind of stuff?
So, that's again, like you said, sports has been a big part of my life. One thing that I tell people is I don't care what it is. Like, sports has made me to, like, I want to be the best at, or I want to be really, really good at it. Even if it's not obtainable or I can't be good at it, I want to try to do the best I can. If I get an opportunity, I don't want to waste it. So it doesn't even matter if that means, someone's reaching out where they need me to connect into them. I want to have enough, like, I like to network. I like to at least have, like, people that I can, like, reach out to and do the best I can. I want to be a good source for somebody. They're like, man, I need a place to crash. I was like, okay, I might have a buddy, or you could stay at my place, and all that. Someone was like, I need to work on this. I was like, my mom's a biology professor, so she might be able to help you get into this, like, get into communication. I just want to, that's what I think I got so much from my school at Goodpasture, that I wanted whatever it is, whoever I'm involved with, I want to make it, like, I want to be the best. Like, it's the same thing like when you're out in the field. Like, you don't want to just be average at it. If you're doing something and you're just like, whatever, and like that, like, I don't understand how you can go at it and, like, with any passion, like, or why you're even doing it.
Yeah.
So, it was I want to be the best at it, but it also, like, you hate to see a teammate that you see a lot of potential in, and especially coaching, like, you got to see the potential of people. Like, if they're not, like, doing things the right way, but you see that they have a lot of potential, you're going to get on to them. You're going to tell them, this is what you need to be doing, because you're not an average guy. And you, like, look at it like the spiritual aspect. Like, God didn't make you average. Like, the odds of you being born, unbelievable. Like, the chances that you're born, you just beat the odds right there. So why are we doing things averagely, So sports, I mean, you always have to, that dog eat dog. It doesn't have to be like that, but you want to go out and, man, I'm going to go make something of something. And you hate to see people down. And that's what I hated in being a team. Like, maybe I might not be the best out there, but I was usually a pretty calm guy. Never really got too bad. I didn't want people to worry about me. So I'd strike out, man. I might be frustrated, but I'll tell people I'll be all right. I'll be fine. Like, just don't worry about me. I'll figure it out. Even if you see me talking to myself, just like, man, I can't be doing this. By the time I get my next opportunity, defensively, offensively, I'll be all right.
I'll be fine.
Just trust me. But some people aren't like that, and coaching you see this broad like view of people. Like not everyone's the same. If you and me are obviously different, I'm a guy that like people could be like getting that onto, and I'll be fine, and you probably are like that too. But there's some people where you gotta not get onto them. You gotta find a creative way to get onto them
You're afraid about their reaction.
yeah, you gotta get onto them in a loving manner, not like I'm just gonna light into this guy.
You gotta put your arm around him and say, "It's all right, bud.
Yeah.
Here's what you did.
Yeah.
Here's what we need to work on."
Yeah.
And some people, the coaching aspect in that way is important.
Yes.
But I mean, some of the biggest lessons I ever got was the ass chewing
Oh.
that I received from whoever. If it was somebody I respected and they were chewing on me, whoever, if I'm talking to you right now and you were some type of proponent in that.
Too many coaches.
Because you were the one that allowed me to wake up and think, wow, the reason you're yelling at me is because you love me and you want to see the best out of me.
Yeah.
And sometimes in coaching, that's just how it is. But there's also times where you have to take that player and wrap your arm around him and say, "Hey, bud, great job. Let's progress on this. Love you. Want the best for you. Just go out there and do your best, and just continue to encourage that." So yeah, I'm big on that.
Yeah. So I mean, sports will always be a life. I'll be able to relate, and I love analogies too. And so I'll always try to wrap something into an important thing. Like if someone was like, "Oh man, I'm just not feeling great today," I was like, "That's okay. It happens. You're gonna have days like that." But at the same time, like especially in the weight room, I talk to people like high school players and all that. And I was like, it might be great that, I mean, it's not great that you have a bad day, but just think about it like this, okay? You're in the weight room where you get a chance to sort of release that. You get a chance to get better as an athlete, like regardless of bad day. It's sort of like a release to me. Some people might be different, but in the weight room, like, oh man, I have had a bad day. I understand that, but you got to think about it. You're training for a sport that you might just be in it to be in it, but nobody cares about your bad day.
Nobody.
Like if I was playing in a game, like let's say like my game yesterday, like someone was like, man, I don't think I did well in that test, and you're sort of thinking about it in the game, which I hope no one's that deep about that test. Like you'll have other chances, but I don't think that shortstop or that pitcher for the other team's like, man, he failed a test. Maybe I should be easy on him. No, they don't care. And it's just how it is. Like there's some things in life, like obviously like you gotta battle through adversity, like a tough time. Now there's some adversities you gotta take differently. Like you're not gonna handle some not every adversity is one size fit all. But you gotta go in that mindset, like I gotta go out and make the best of this day. And that's what baseball is. Like you might have a bad day, but I still got to get better today somehow. Coaching, you're like, man, I maybe we didn't have a great practice. Well, there's some good in it. There's some things we got to work on, but we can't ruin the day because we're not feeling great or we're not doing this. You still have a life to live, and you can't just like use that as a crutch. I'm not a crutch guy either. I tell my guys yesterday when we were sort of struggling, I was like, I'm not in the business of making excuses. All right. I can make an excuse about this and all that, but at the same time, I got to own up to it. But
excuses are easy.
Yeah. You just got to get over it and don't make excuses, sort of challenge yourself, and go out and do it. Cause again, at the end of the day, it's your life. You gotta, if you want to use that crutch and depend on maybe somebody feeling bad, it's not going to work. And again, I'm not saying this for all adversities. Like there's been some like the tornado. Like some people passed away. Some people had a lot of damage to their house. Like that's different. I'm saying things that aren't sort of minuscule that we create to be to a bigger scale.
Exactly.
Like, oh man, like I had this cold, I can't do anything right now. And you're like, I get it, and take your time, recover, but you got to be in the mindset like, I'm not going to let this absolutely derail my day. Like you have all these times in like, what is it, 86,400 seconds in a day. If you're going to let 10 seconds of something ruin that time, then I mean, we just weren't in the right mindset or frame of mind to go at it.
Yeah. So I like to equate, like talk to my guys a lot, and I just want y'all to know, listen to the podcast, that the words that I speak at this given time really aren't even my own. I get them from other sources, and I kind of put them to fit what the topic of the podcast is about. But I talk about, when you look at the process and you look at and how to win and what it takes to win, and you think about, are you willing to run a marathon when the distance is really not known? Are you, if you signed up for a marathon, you said, hey, I want to run a marathon, and they said, great, the distance, we can't tell you, we don't even know what it is, you just start running. Well, I would be hesitant. I'd be like, well, where's the goal? Where's my goal? Is it 20 miles? Is it 50 miles? Is it a super marathon? And if you don't have a tangible number in front of you, most people aren't going to run that marathon. But if you think about it, that's life. It's a marathon without a goal, without a ending. It's a marathon without a foreseeable finish line. We don't know where the finish line is. And I'm talking about passing from this life on to the next one. But we don't know when that finish line, when we're coming up to the finish line. We don't know that. So we continue to go, and we continue to work, and we continue to make progress. And sometimes when it comes to winning and it comes to competing, I hate to tell y'all, but winning doesn't have feelings. Like the aspect of winning has no feelings. Winning will do everything it can to keep you from getting to it. But if we continue to run that marathon without the unknown distance, and we keep pushing ourselves and making that progress, we will find ourselves, whether we see it as a win or not, you will find yourself in some type of a win. You don't always have to win the big battle, but you win those small battles, the big battle becomes a lot easier. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good way to wrap up. I know you got a lot of things going on today. Man, I really appreciate you coming on, dude. I know we went way past the time that I expected, but
that's what happens when you talk, you know.
When you get to talking about passionate things in life, and especially sports, when you are in the same room as two athletes, I barely consider myself an athlete compared to Alex, but at the end of the day, when you get two guys like that are passionate about something, and they continue to invest themselves into what we knew for most of our lives is sports. Sometimes we get a little bit long-winded. That's okay. But we appreciate you guys joining in today. Again, thanks, Alex, for coming out, man. Super excited about this, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Next week's episode is going to be with another great friend of mine. Y'all stay tuned, and peace out.
Peace. Shout out, Blaine.
Cool. Great job, man.
Anytime,
First
man.
take.
Big one-take guy. Yeah. I tell myself one take.